Hi BookTube. So I recently spent some time working on the default is to say Excel sheet, but I'm actually doing it on Google Sheets. So I made a whole Google Sheet of every book that I own, and I decided to do some stats. You know how you do it at the end of the year reading? I decided to look at my bookshelf as a whole, and I've realized some stuff. Some stuff that I need to fix, and yeah, some stuff that I may not need to fix. So I'm just gonna dive in. It's just gonna be a stats video about my bookshelves. So let's go. The total number of books, according to my sheets, and I'll explain why this number is not 100% accurate, is 1,151 books. That number is probably a bit longer because there's some comic series that I counted as one. So like, for example, the Bone series, I counted as one book, even though there's 9 books of it on my shelf. I did that with the Amulet series as well. And then I didn't include single issue comics on that spreadsheet, just because that would be a lot of work. I have to do a whole separate spreadsheet for single issue comics. So yeah, generally speaking, 1,151 books on my shelf. Actually, technically now speaking, that's 1,152 books because I just bought a book. Where did it go? I just bought Stephen King's Fairy Tale the other day. So the numbers are going to be off by 1, but that's okay. So the average page count, which I thought was interesting, is 336 pages, which explained why I had a lot of hard time finding all the short books I could for Shorty September, or reading 30 books in 30 days. Because all my books tend to be above, you know, that page count, under 200 pages. Under 200 pages. Above 200 pages, I guess is what I'd say. So, unread versus read versus started, books that I've started and haven't finished. So I've read 440 of those books. I've started 46 of them. And I have 600 and I guess the number 666 now unread. No, because I did finish one. So it's still 665 unread books on my shelf. Okay, then I also did books that I considered my favorites. And there's 165 books on there that I consider my favorites on my shelves. And then books considered my all-time favorites, like favorite books. There's a list of 27. I'm not going to go through them. I'm going to do a separate video on my all-time favorite books. So yeah. Fiction versus nonfiction split. Doesn't surprise me, but it's something I think I need to work on. I have 937 fiction books, 210 nonfiction books, and 4 books that are kind of a mix of fiction and nonfiction. So like the complete works of Oscar Wilde would have like both his plays and his novels and then like his essays in it. So that would be mixed, right? And I've been really into nonfiction this year. So I kind of want to mix that ratio up and get the nonfiction book number higher. Another fun statistic is I organize my shelves by color. So I decided to look at, you know, what's the ratio of colors on my shelf. So yeah, they're just, I think it's in alphabetical order here. So I have 58 beige books. I have 178 black books, and that's the highest number on my shelf. I think that's probably one of the most common colors for published books. The next highest number is interesting, though. That's the blue shelf with 136 books on there. I have 40 brown books, 32 gray books, 91 green books, surprisingly. Only 4 books that are multiple colored. 46 orange books, 20 pink books, 31 purple books, 73 red books, 91 white books, and yellow comes in at 46. Just interesting stats. Okay, now to break it down by genre. So fiction genre. The highest fiction genre is fantasy, actually, at 223 fantasy books. Then 193 science fiction books, 29 horror books, which surprises me because I don't read a lot of horror, but I guess there's 29 there. 155 general fiction, meaning I could find another category for it. 166 classics, 63 historical fictions, 23 poetries, 23 short stories, 14 classified as superhero, those are comics, 1 Western, 9 plays, 24 mysteries, 24 books that I classified as humor. I think those are mostly middle grade books, actually. 4 romance, and 6 thriller. I made the I romance because I don't read a lot of romance, so I'm trying to figure out which of those books are. I think there's like the Angels trilogy that I read when I was younger, and yeah. Anyways, then I have nonfiction genre. I'm gonna not go through all of them because a lot of them are just like 1 or 2 books in each of those genres. The biggest genre, not a surprise, religion, at 69 books. Books about race and indigenous issues is at 20 books. 21 books about history, 20 books that are biography or memoir. I combine those two. 15 books about science. 9 books that have to do with disability or mental health. 8 books on philosophy, and then the rest I just categorized as other. Another stat that I decided to do was the age divide, and this doesn't really surprise me. 905 of my books are for adults. I got 91 middle grade. I love middle grade, especially like Roald Dahl and David Walliams, like funny middle grade books. 81 are categorized as children's books, and it's funny because they're all just on one shelf, but they're like literally like just children's books. I'm not talking like chapter books, they're picture books. Even though that is questionable about whether some of them are actually children's books or picture books for adults. It's a whole other story. And then 18 young adult books. I'm not a big fan of young adults, but I do enjoy some of it. Oh, this is just a random figure stuck in here. The number of books that are in a series on my shelf is 333. And that, I just realized the number also doesn't include the fact that I have 2 copies of each book in the Wheel of Time series, as well as the first book, which has been divided into 2 books for young readers. So there's like a whole bunch, but that 333 books is just 1 copy of each of those, if that makes sense. Okay, this is where the numbers get a little disconcerting for me. 804 of the authors on my shelf are male. And I know my previous reading self was very snobbish and biased and heavily influenced by like online bro culture, unfortunately. So yeah, a lot of my shelf is male for now, and I'm going to try and rectify that going forward, even though I just bought a Stephen King book. Like, how does that help? How does that help? I don't know. It doesn't help, but I got to do better going forward. I have 282 female authors, 41 books that I categorized as various, so they're written by multiple people, and 5 books by non-binary or two-spirited people. Okay, continents of the author, so where they live. That's what this breakdown is. So I'm just going to go in the order that I have it listed here. 22 authors are from South Asia, and it's my breakdown too, so it's not actually actual continents. It's just kind of my version of where people are in the world. So South Asia is separate from Asia in my mind, even though like, you know, it's like on the map they seem so vastly far apart, so it just makes sense to me to separate them. So South Asia is 22, Asia is 24. Indigenous populations are 22. I believe only one of those is from Australia. The rest are North American. 470 authors from the US. 189 authors from Canada. I thought that number would be higher, but it's not. 1 author from Eurasia, just because I couldn't figure out where to put that country, and I can't remember what the country is now. 20 authors from Arabic countries. 8 authors from Africa. 3 authors from the Caribbean, 22 authors from Latin America, 261 authors from, I always get it mixed up between like UK and Great Britain, but I put UK, Ireland, just kind of UK, like England, Scotland, Wales. I'm not pitting them where they are actually, but you get the general idea of that area, right? 24 people from Earth. And that's just because the book was written by various people from various locations. And 74 from Europe. And then again, the race breakdown is another worrying thing for me. I got to rectify that again. 913 of the authors on my shelf are white. Yeah, I'm not happy with that number. 27 are indigenous, 54 are black, 3 are mixed race. This is just from the identities I could find of them online. You know, what like a Wikipedia article would identify them at, or you know, author bios, those kind of things. So yeah, so 3 authors who are mixed, 29 Latin authors, 38 Asian authors, 63 brown authors, and 24 non-applicable, which I think is because there were various authors. Yeah, so those are my bookshelf stats. There's, you know, lots of places I could improve upon. I'm not too worried about my unread to my read portions. To be honest, I'm happy with that. I was surprised that there were 440 books on my shelf that I have read. I thought it was a lot less. And that's 486 technically that I have opened and read. Not necessarily finished though. Yeah, I'd like to get more nonfiction. I don't really care about the color breakdown. I just thought it was fun to do. Again, I don't really care about the fiction breakdown. I'm going to read what I like to read, and I guess I like to read a lot of fantasy, science fiction, and classics. And nonfiction, again, I like picking up a lot of stuff. I want to pick up more books, I guess, on disability and mental health. That's a new thing that I started getting into, but I also like a lot of fiction written by people with disabilities as well, but those, whether the author or not was disabled wasn't one of the stats I was keeping track of, because my spreadsheet screwed up when I was trying to track all sorts of other stuff. So I just kind of stuck with what was easiest to do here. But I know I need to improve the amount of people with disabilities on my shelf. I'm okay with the age breakdown. I tend to gear towards adult literature anyways. I want to pick up more female authors and more non-binary authors as well. I did not include trans identities. If a person was trans and identified as female, they're just included in the female breakdown, so I didn't separate them out. Yeah. I've noticed this year too, I did stats for my whole reading this year to see where I can improve to, and I haven't read any authors from Africa yet, and I only have 8 books on my shelf from there, and I need to improve that. And I need to improve Caribbean literature too, I guess, because that's only 3. Everything else besides Eurasia, I gotta figure out where that is, because whether they can fit into maybe like South Asia or Europe anyways. But anyways, yeah, those 2 numbers are the only numbers that aren't in the double digits, so I need to improve that. And then again, I just need to stop buying white authors, I think is the solution at this point. And I've said it a million times, but I haven't done it because books are cheap. And it's hard. I'm gonna admit it. It's hard, you know, when I don't have the budget to go on just like Amazon and just order whatever I want. Like, I'm really heavily reliant on thrift stores for books and stuff like that, so I'm dependent on what other people in my community are reading to, and it sounds like I'm making an excuse, but I know it's something that I can do, because I have found, you know, so many different authors at used book sales, and I can go to, you know, used books online, but it's still more expensive than buying them in person. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to dedicate some money into doing that. So that I'm happier with my bookshelf. So that's it. That's my bookshelf stats. I think this is a fascinating thing that everyone should do, so that they can, you know, change their reading and get more perspectives from the world. So yeah, let me know if you thought this was interesting, if you have any cool stats from your own bookshelves, and thank you for watching.